Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, industry experts, welcome to our webinar on underwriting transformation with generative AI. In the ever-evolving landscape of insurance, a significant shift is underway. Gone are the days of traditional underwriting, characterized by manual processes and stacks of paperwork. Today, we stand on the threshold of a new era, one where data-driven insights, cutting-edge AI technology, and a deep understanding of risk intersect to reshape the very foundations of underwriting. As we gather here, we explore how these changes are not only enhancing the efficiency and accuracy of underwriting, but also where data-driven insights and human intuition of underwriters merge to redefine the risk assessment in insurance, making it more accessible, efficient, and finally tailored for individual risk and needs. We are so happy to have you here as we delve deeper into our exciting world of underwriting transformation through AI, innovation where tradition meets opportunities in the future. Let me introduce myself. I am Vikas Sachdeva, the Global Head of Advisory Services and Portfolio Executive within our Financial Services and Insurance Business Unit here at Quantiphi. Today, we have a stellar lineup of industry experts who will delve deep into the technology and talk about how we are reimagining the insurance sector, especially the underwriting process. But before we get going, just a quick housekeeping items. All audience will remain on mute throughout this discussion. However, we will open up Q&A towards the end of the session. We do encourage attendees to interact with us through chat or through Q&A throughout this session. We will try to get to all your questions during the Q&A slot towards the end of the webinar. However, if we are unable to get to your questions, we will do our best to answer it offline. With the housekeeping behind us, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists for introduction, starting with you, Farooq, first.
Thank you, Vikas, for having me here, and welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the attendees. We are super excited. My name is Farooq Sheikh. As Vikas mentioned, we are excited about talking about the underwriting transformation. I lead the insurance business at Unqork, and it's a pleasure being here with our guests.
Arunima, you want to go next?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, basis where you're located. My name is Arunima Gautam. I lead the go-to-market and products for the FSI business unit at Quantiphi. Very pleased to be here, and we hope we are able to make your time worthwhile. Over to you, Nigel.
Thanks, Arunima. So Nigel Walsh, I lead insurance here at Google Cloud, and I share everyone else's excitement.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you all on the panel here today. Let's dive in. But before we do so, first we have a quick poll for our audience. Tejas, if you don't mind, just can you pop it up, please? Thank you, Tejas. So audience, please note that you may have to scroll down here. There are 4 questions that you need to answer. And if you are using a dual monitor, like I do, the poll might have actually popped up on your second screen. So keep an eye there so you don't miss it. Let me just quickly read the questions for you. How many different tools does an underwriter currently have to interact with within your organization? You can choose one of the options, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, or more than 10. By the way, more or less all these questions are with the commercial P&C line of insurance in the mind here. The second one is, how much time do underwriting teams spend triaging the submissions? Not going through all the way to the underwriting process, just triaging initially the submissions. 1 to 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours, 2 to 5 days, 6 to 10 days. Next question, number 3. The percentage of submissions do underwriters currently evaluate that comes in through the door? How many they are even able to get to? Less than 25%, 25 to 50, 75, 50 to 75 and 75 and more. The last question, the fourth. How long does it typically take your teams, the underwriting teams, to go from submission all the way to quote? 1 to 2 days, 3 to 5 days, 6 to 10 days or above. So as the audience are responding to this poll, I'm going to turn it over for questions to our panelists here. And the question really starts from what are the key challenges that underwriters really face to compete on more submissions, effectively handling the complex issues and risk, and bottom line, improving the underwriting profits? Let's start with you, Farooq.
Thank you, Vikas. And this is just in terms of the audience and the group here. I think we have been looking at this question for roughly 15 years, right? This is not a new question or a new challenge. And it's been a persistent and a really hard problem to solve as an industry, right? I think I still remember some of the initial work we did in this space was always thinking about the people, the process, and the technology. And it was always difficult to get the transformation to occur across all these three dimensions, where you need eventually for the underwriters to be able to focus and prioritize the biggest risks and submissions and somehow enable a more digitized experience, right? Like the concept of bionic underwriter, the concept of technology-enabled underwriting has been there. So what's new, what's different? Why are we talking about it today? I do think that over the past 10, 15 years, the length of our journey, the industry has made very good progress in terms of getting better and better at the people element, at the process element. And finally, I think we are starting to see a very significant improvement in the technology side, right? Like the challenges, kind of, which is the key question, are the same. Legacy systems, siloed data, process reengineering required, as well as a lot of manual work, just from everywhere, from submission, ingestion, and understanding of the risks to the process of appetite and clearance, all the way to underwriting, has been historically, and even today in a lot of companies, heavily manual, right? And that's where the focus of the conversation is around how these experts, underwriters who are sophisticated kind of folks around risk assessment and risk understanding can spend more time doing risk management on submissions as opposed to moving data from one system to another or looking at various sources of information and so forth. That's, to me, the biggest challenge. How do you prioritize and enable the highly valued resources, underwriters, to focus on the right submissions with the right digital underpinning and the bionic kind of elements that supplement and reinforce their capabilities as opposed to make them more frustrated on a day-to-day basis? Back to you, Vikas.
Yeah, thank you, Farooq. Arunima, you want to take the same question here?
Sure. I share a sense of solidarity with what Farooq just called out in terms of how long it has taken for us to be where we are today. In my experience of working with insurers globally, what we have understood is insurance, especially commercial, is very agent-driven process, very broker-driven process, where the broker is orchestrating conversation between your carrier and your customer. While in the past few years, technology has advanced significantly to make your system of records nimble, to make other aspects of this value chain nimble, what it has not done is it has not optimized the operational process. Even today, we follow that age-old process of manually intaking submissions, extracting information from there, mitigating it to the next reviewer, next party, doing manual back and forth between the different parties involved. That is where we feel the automation that can enable quick turnaround times or quick cycle time of reducing the time for a submission intake and evaluating it with the right metrics. If we can reduce that significantly, that means we will be able to bring down the time it takes to close a certain submission and underwriting of a certain incoming transaction quickly. Even today, there are some large commercial carriers out there who spend 7 to 8 weeks in closing this entire process. The idea is bring this down so that you can increase your customer affinity, efficiency, and in the process, reduce the cost of operating. That is where our product Docufy comes into picture. It's an intelligent document processing solution backed by generative AI. And end-to-end submission intake automation is enabled through Docufy, which is enabled for different line of businesses in the commercial insurance space. You talk about the more general line of business, the more nuanced line of business, all of them are today available out of the box. And this automation, where your submission intake can be automated, your necessary information can be extracted quickly, and you have generative AI assistants that help you get through nuanced information of the incoming paper trail within a matter of seconds, is going to help underwriters significantly in terms of reducing that cycle time from submission intake all the way to underwriting these policies. Back to you, Vikas.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Arunima. That was very insightful. Nigel, what are your thoughts on what challenges you are seeing and hearing from the industry?
Yeah, not to repeat what Farooq or Arunima have said, so I'll avoid that. But what I have observed in 1 or 2 years, if not quite a few more, of working with insurers and brokers is I've never met an underwriter that wants to do a bad job or that doesn't have enough hours in the day to get through all of the submissions and activities that are there. I go back 20 years and we used to say you'd come to work for better technology and more speed and all those cool things that were there. Well, that's flipped in many cases. And I think we need to rebalance that again to give the same speed and access of capability, summarization, orchestration, and tools to our folks on the front line to do the job that they love truly, which is actually understanding and digging into the risk to make sure that it's the right thing for their organization at that time, not the hell that is swivel chair integration between legacy applications, technical debt, systems, and so much more. So I think we have an obligation to help those people do the thing that we've employed them to do in the first place and that they're experts and passionate about. And I think, you know, to Arunima's and Farooq's point, over the years, technology has got better and better and better. And we can always go after the 1% better or the 5% better or 10% better. But maybe we should be challenging ourselves on not just digitizing the old process, but reimagining entirely with the technology that's available today, what it would look like if we were going to start from a blank sheet of paper and how we'd make underwriters not just bionic, but super bionic or superhuman, given the things that we can do now.
Interesting points there, Nigel. So thank you. Tejas, let me prompt you here. Do we have the poll results in? Can we see what our audience are thinking in terms of challenges they are seeing in the industry right now?
Sure, Vikas.
Interesting. On the first question, seems like more or less an even split in terms of number of systems that our underwriters are seeing in the industry. Second question around how much time it takes from triaging submissions. Seems like a split there also, heavier on the 2 to 5 days it takes to just triaging the initial submission. Interesting. The next one is what percentage submissions that they even currently evaluate. Seems like 75% or more, 25%, but equal split there also. Heavy on the 25 to 50% range with 37%. And the last, how much time does it take all the way from submissions to quote, end-to-end process? This one is going heavy on the 10 days or more or 3 to 5 days here. I encourage our attendees to jump on the chat session and make observations. Do you find these results in line with generally what your reactions are? And I'm open to hearing from our panelists if you found anything interesting from these results that we just see.
I think the last one, go ahead, Nigel.
Okay, good.
I was surprised by the last one a little bit, right? Because if you look at it, 37% of folks still had, more than 10 days to respond to a submission, right? As the world shifts a little bit towards, and we're in a hard market and there's a lot of risk to be underwritten and so forth, right? So I get that. But as the world shifts a little bit towards productivity and efficiency, I think that's the area that's going to need to change in terms of broker responsiveness and the ability to build businesses and better, faster kind of response and iteration with the broker community broadly. So that's my one observation on the responses, that it's a little surprising to see that significant amount of folks still taking 10+ days to revert on submissions. Nigel, over to you.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the days, to be honest. I think what I'm more interested in is how do we get it consistent and continuous throughout. So, and again, we know it differs between line of business and complexity of products or complexity of risk and so much more. But actually, what I'd love to see is we've managed to get it into a defined guardrail of time to get either through triage and through all of the submissions, not just some of them, and to a specific amount of time for each, or for particular lines of business. Can we make it more or more continuity in all of those things? So I'd rather less volatility there, personally speaking.
Interesting observations here. Good poll. Thank you for participating there.
I think Kieran,
Yeah.
in the chat said exactly the same thing, by the way, as well. Be interested to know the breakdown of market segments. And I think the representation of folks on the call is across multiple lines and markets. So it's a broad question and a hard one to answer, I think, Vikas, when you've got such a broad remit.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. And of course, personal lines, we have to keep it aside here anyways, because the underwriting process is so much straight through and automated there. But yes, commercial lines is also depends all the way from small to medium to specialty, and it can take different processes. Wonderful. I'm gonna go to you, Arunima. You already touched upon the ideas of operational hurdles where underwriters face today. But let me switch gear, and I would ask you to go a little bit deeper on, if you can, touch upon the use of generative AI, and in general, the AI machine learning, broadly speaking, that really fosters the growth for underwriters.
Sure. I think the primary role that AI plays in this ecosystem is to expedite the process, right? Where an incoming transaction, we spoke about triaging incoming submissions, prioritizing them correctly. At first step, AI can enable understanding what is a certain submission coming into the ecosystem, what are the key information coming out of it, what is our named insured, what kind of line of business I am dealing with, what kind of priority I should be giving it, etc. That is the first step where AI helps significantly, that is prioritizing the right task for your reviewers and underwriters. The second step where AI helps is if you are dealing with incoming submissions of 200, 500, 600, 1,000 pages split across documents, how do you really validate that the incoming submission has correct attachments to it? The incoming submission has all the details that a reviewer or underwriter requires to evaluate a certain submission. That is another aspect where AI comes in very handy, where it is able to pick up the right kind of information irrespective of the format of the paper. Gone are the days when we were building template-based solutions. Now we are building AI models that can pick up a policy number if it appears on page 2 or appears on page 10 in any format. It should be able to pick that information. It focuses on information instead of template of the paper, because we understand there are multiple parties involved. Information sometimes comes in Excels. A lot of information comes as part of email bodies that underwriters will have to evaluate. That's the third step where AI comes in very handy. Extract the necessary information from all the paper trail, compare, contrast, validate it's the right information, give the reviewers and underwriters the ability to perform human-in-the-loop activities that can overwrite what is the AI interpreting out of the paper trail, etc. And then through the process of underwriting, where Unqork provides that seamless experience, auto-populate all the fields that underwriters need to evaluate a certain risk or a submission. With generative AI, it has been a huge buzz for the past year in the market. These large language models, how they can help is make your querying very natural language based. I don't want to go through a incoming submission that has 600, 700 pages attached to it, go through every page, understand where is a certain information coming from, what is the value of it, etc. Everyone here might be able to appreciate nuances like limits for any entity or each entity. Those are some important aspects that AI can pick up context out of and present to the underwriter. Where generative AI helps is an underwriter or reviewer should be able to write a query in natural language and extract contextual information from the paper trail in a suggestive format. You can think about scenario-based questions, responses that are hidden in the fine prints of a policy document, responses that are impacted by state laws. In many cases, there are documents that are being used by operations team, FAQ documents, operating documents. How do you easily query? And operators of all different levels, be it new ones or the more experienced ones, should be able to perform with high efficiency without spending that time on onboarding them into that ecosystem. So that in a nutshell is how AI enables the end-to-end process in the underwriting, end-to-end underwriting automation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arunima. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. As generative AI has really become a buzzword, but we are really seeing tremendous applications of the technology in the heart of the business here, including the underwriting. So Nigel, if I may go to you next, Arunima already touched upon the automation aspect and AI-driven decision-making in the underwriting process, by the way. Additionally, the question that keeps coming up is, how do we enrich the data as part of the process overall? So how do you anticipate that the Google and its vast network of partners can provide the data to enhance the underwriting process for these insurance companies?
It's a question we get asked all the time, given our position in the market, as you might imagine. And actually, through our marketplace partners, I think we have a unique opportunity to bring together insights, whether it's on pre-fill, whether it's on validation, whether it's on updating submissions or insights with the latest and greatest that we have from those partner networks, whether it's folks like Cape Analytics, TensorFlight, neural metrics, and so many more. I think we've got if you think about the whole process in a series of layers, the foundational layer, which all runs on Google Cloud, gives you the base architecture to actually start to join the dots. And then we can layer on, to Arunima's point, capabilities around generative AI that will do summarization of stuff that we got in the core. But actually also then, if you've then worked out that we're missing 7, 8, 10, 15 different points, all those points are not as we thought they might be or different to information that we had previously, can we then validate that against either your own data or third-party sources? Well, then Google's marketplace has currently got 1,500 different partners in there and loads of other folks in there, like Crux and Dun & Bradstreet, and there's so many more that we can bring to bear to enrich and make sure that the things that we're dealing with are the most accurate, so that then when they do get to the underwriter, we're not then going off doing that manual, I'm going to call it busy work, that we can actually have machines do for you to actually then get you back to doing the thing that I said at the outset, which is actually the thing that you love doing, which is, I've now got all the information. I now validated it's correct. I've now got confidence scores against each of the metrics. Let me now deal with the task at hand of saying, is this right for our business or not?
Interesting point, and thank you, Nigel. Thank you for taking that question on why pretty much everyone expects Google to have the vast amount of data and be able to help here. I see a question come up on our Q&A, by the way, which is automation threatens workers, even underwriters, and change management gets harder. How do you change the perception to value proposition? So Farooq, I'm going to build upon this question that's posted here by Anand, along with my own question, because you already touched upon Bionic Underwriter, which is, we have all seen the articles, we have read the articles on Bionic Underwriter, how it's really going to impact the life for underwriters. But have we really reached that pinnacle point yet, Farooq? And even if this is even accurate, and I think Anand is trying to get to the same question here. So over to you, Farooq.
It's a great question, Vikas. And this is what I was alluding to, right? Like, this is not a new area. This is not a new problem. People have been looking at it, right? So, and I distinctly remember over the past 10, 15 years when we started looking at this area, it was always people, process, and technology. And historically, we used to say, let's just solve people and process. If there's a way we can better organize both the process and the people element, because we don't expect technology is a major program in 5, 10 years and it won't get done and things like that. So let's just focus on the people element and the process element. But I do think, as the industry had made a lot of progress, but more importantly, the emergence of cloud, like GCP being a leader in that space, and all the capabilities that are being brought, along with the kind of industry maturing with more pre-integrated partnerships, more pre-built solutions, and the ability for the vendors to organize themselves and partners and SI partners to organize themselves in a way where you're not starting from scratch, right? The speed to value conversation is entirely different now. You are now going from essentially a 5-year program, multi-million, multi-year, to a 5-month program to achieve the speed to value and demonstrate that capability within traditional enterprises, right? Like that is the leading edge. In fact, now the conversation has flipped around a lot from people, process, technology, to start with process and technology and help the change management element becoming a bigger conversation around the people. As processes and technologies become more agile, how do you make sure that the technology adoption is the conversation, both around enrichment and experience? That's the biggest change that we are seeing, that you've gone from the speed to value conversation being a question mark to being a very clear outcome. And the industry as a whole, and the likes of this group broadly, have solved key questions like interoperability with legacy systems, the ability for scalability across multiple lines and geographies, the ability to bring in data sources and enrichment partners like Nigel mentioned. These are the kind of problems that the industry, scalability, both at the compute and storage level, but also at the solution level, multi-language, multi-currency, all these factors that were previously bespoke and problematic have been addressed in a systematic way. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of excitement across the industry to really think about the problem and the promise of bionic underwriters. Now, we're not done yet. We're almost like we are now able to deliver on the promise of bionic underwriting, but the change management elements shouldn't be underestimated. The use of Gen AI, how do you upskill and reskill the underwriters to better focus on submissions that are most value creative and streamline the process impediments? That's where the challenge is at the moment.
Can I chime in here as well, Vikas, with something else, if I may? And back to Anand's question around how do you change the perception to value proposition? I started my career in a job that no longer exists. It just doesn't exist at all. And I'm now doing a job that probably didn't exist 20 years ago, in a technology that didn't exist 20 years ago. And my kids that are 11 and 14 will do jobs that aren't even invented today. So I think a lot of this is, if you take Farooq's point about people, process, technology will always improve, whether it's the seatbelt in the car, whether it's new inventions, whether it's self-driving, or back to underwriting. We're going to provide more things to make each of our lives easier. And I generally think this is a mindset and culture change to go, how do I embrace technology to do something differently, as opposed to fear it, that's going to take the thing away that I've done. And for me in insurance, if you look at the surveys by some of the consulting firms, I think McKinsey have said for years that insurance has got the most opportunity for disruption across every single industry. I think it's like top 1 or top 2. Yet here we are, 300 years later, making improvements after improvement after improvement. We're not going anywhere. In fact, we're just going to get better and smarter and smarter. And I think the mindset shift for me is, to Anand's point, is we've got to change that perception to go, actually, we need to embrace these tools with the right guardrails so that they enhance what we do to provide better outcomes and protection for our end consumers.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to add one
yeah.
point to this, Vikas, and
Yeah.
back to the poll that happened. There was one question where it was said that underwriters, as of today, are able to get to close to 25% to 50% of the submissions. The idea of artificial intelligence automation here is to take that number to 100% by focusing on the more complex and nuanced activities. Artificial intelligence here is an enabler put in the hands of the human force to make the whole system more robust and more fast forward the process.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arunima, Nigel, and Farooq, taking the questions as we are going here. This is wonderful. At this time, I would like to ask all three of you. You are representing Quantiphi, Arunima, Nigel is representing Google Cloud, and Farooq, you are representing Unqork. What is the rationale behind this partnership? And how does this collaboration really offer added value to insurance companies? If you all take maybe a minute each to really just walk us through very quickly the value proposition here.
Sure. Arunima, you want to go first?
Yeah, please go ahead, Nigel.
No, Arunima. I said Arunima.
Okay, got it. I think, Vikas, it's very mutually complementary relationship between the three partners. That's Google Cloud, Unqork, and Quantiphi. Google Cloud is providing the baseline infrastructure, the APIs, the data landscape to a solution like this. Unqork is bringing in what they are best at, that is the seamless experience, quick fungibility of the customization of these screens, etc., that can dive into the experience that the underwriters and operations team need for faster organization change management. And Quantiphi is the orchestrator that is bringing both these best technologies out there together in building something end to end, complementing it with artificial intelligence. We have been in the business for a decade now of artificial intelligence, been productionalizing artificial intelligence, low-code, no-code at scale for our customers. And this is a great opportunity where we are coming together and bringing this into the ecosystem. Briefly, our audience is going to see a demonstration where you will see what we bring to the table is not something that requires a build from scratch. We have accelerators built out there that you can bring into your ecosystem for faster go-to-market. Over to you, Nigel and Farooq.
Yeah, appreciate it. Look, if anyone knows me on LinkedIn or Twitter, you'll hear me say all the time, together we go far, which is stolen from my favorite friends at Peloton. But actually, I genuinely believe that on our own, we have a great opportunity, but together we can go much further, much faster. To your point, we've got phenomenal technology, and our focus is actually building world-class infrastructure that integrates to your environments and other cloud providers and so much more, as well as our huge investment in AI and generative AI more recently. We do need a plethora of partners like Unqork and many others that we'll bring to bear here, number one, and then deep domain experience from the industry. And I think this has been wrapped up beautifully in what we refer to as this industry value network. And thank you to Sanjeev and all the team that have helped bring this together. But you're going to see a lot more of those come to life as we solve real business problems, because we've all been around insurance long enough. I've seen the folks that are attending the webinar. Every insurer will say, oh, we're a little bit different, or we're unique in certain ways. But to be fair, there's enough commonality in the overall foundational process that we can solve and help accelerate, and then spend our time not reinventing the wheel, but actually focusing the bit that differentiates you most.
Farooq.
So I agree with everything Arunima and Nigel said. The one thing I do think that the world has changed a little bit, right? And if you go back 10, 15 years, every element of technology or data providers or insurers even, they thought about trying to solve this problem on their own, right? That was just the narrative and the prevailing wisdom. And that was one of the biggest reasons why there's no single entity, insurer, vendor, or provider broadly that can solve these problems. These are complex interlocking problems with multiple technology, process, people issues that cannot be provided by, like, it's industry transformation. That's the biggest issue. And conversely, historically, we have seen that whole outcome play out in terms of the siloed nature of data and how enterprises operate with the kind of daily struggles, right? Like in terms of how do you free up the data, how do you free up the insights, how do you free up the ability to impact process and people and so forth, right? And I do think this, like IBM is a brilliant example of trying to pull together the necessary stakeholders in terms of folks who have industry insights, folks who provide kind of significant elements of the technology, partners that bring in data and insight to try to pre-solve it for the industry. It's too big a problem for any one entity to solve or any one insurer to solve on their own. And thus you must have this ecosystem view. And IBM is a brilliant example of how you build the ecosystem of the willing, so to speak, that are dedicated to fixing this problem at the industry level, and then working within the industry leaders in transforming the space, right? Like that's kind of how we have to get out of this concept of, one insurer or vendor or individual can think about solving industry level problems or transforming the industry, and more about how do we work together to solve the fundamental problem so every company can focus on what differentiates them, right? Like this is not where being able to do bionic underwriting soon won't be where differentiation lies, right? The differentiation is going to be in your ability to pick the risks and assess them and have the right kind of distribution and underwriting compositions and claims and risk management composition. This is not where competition should be, but that's unfortunately where it is today. Your ability to be the bionic underwriter today is a differentiator, and we're hoping collectively the power of IBM changes that dynamic in the next 5 years, and every company can focus on what is differentiating for them.
If I can, Vikas, if I can just add very quickly, because Claudio has asked a question in the chat as well about reinsurers and is Gen AI, and I'm taking you off to a topic in your flow, but actually relates back to what Farouk just said. The summary of the question is Gen AI a diminishing this competitive edge? And I actually had this question yesterday with a customer. I actually think it's leveling up the playing field, and it's making it more equal for insurers, brokers, reinsurers of all shapes and sizes. And you'll get to a world where people either use it or don't. And that will be the differentiator, because it will become table stakes for everything that we do. In the same way that digital was 10 years ago, you don't get the opportunity to not do this. And I think that's one of the things that's got me quite excited right now, is the accessibility of this, regardless of the size of your organization, small broker, global broker, small insurer, large multinational, regional. There's no distinguishing lines. Your ability to use, augment, deploy, and enable and augment your underwriting teams with this is what's going to differentiate you.
That's a wonderful point, Nigel. I think the last point that you hit on, that this is equally available to everyone, is an important point to make. You know what? At this time, I think there are a lot of questions coming up on Docufy. I notice here. Why don't I quickly walk you through and set the stage, and then Arunima, I would ask you to quickly demo, because I believe picture is worth 1,000 words. Starting with this picture and then the live picture of the product itself. So you heard about the challenges underwriters face. We talked a lot about the solutions here, but how it all comes together. It's with Unqork's seamless experience, bringing it all from end-to-end customer experience perspective with their codeless platform, as we touched upon. Docufy, which starts with all digital submissions intake process, be able to use AI and ML to classify the documents, extract the right information out of those unstructured documents that Arunima already touched about before. And more importantly, enriching the data through first-party, third-party, externally data sources, create a package for underwriters now to focus on determining the risk, selecting the right risk to undertake, be able to price it accurately, and be able to generate a quote and send it over for acceptance. This system works in your ecosystem pretty much with upstream and downstream integrations as required, built in with right intelligence insights at your fingertips for underwriters to make the right decisions at the right time. along with some generative AI powers. I'm not going to steal thunder from you, Arunima. So why don't I turn it over to you so you can actually show this live on the system here today.
Sounds good. I'm going to pull up my screen here. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can see it, Arunima.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to demonstrate the AiUP, which is AI-led intelligent underwriting that we are bringing for the industry. What you see up front here is, imagine a reviewer has signed into the end-to-end process. This upfront is a dashboard that talks about all the different submissions, how many documents are under review, which ones are out for clearance or in quoting process. You can always customize this dashboard basis the need. The reason why I highlight the login aspect is because an operations team member will have a different kind of login than an underwriter and every other role that exists in the value chain. When you scroll down from this screen, you're going to see that there is a file dashboard that is intelligent enough to pick up what are all the incoming submissions. You will see that artificial intelligence here has identified who was the broker that sent the transaction, what is the subject line, line of business, etc., first named insured and other aspects. Say I as a reviewer want to prioritize my cargo transaction that has come in. I'm going to click on it. The next step here is to analyze what are the documents that have come as part of the submission. Here, the artificial intelligence is laying out for you that there are 3 types of paper trails I found in the transaction. One was your SOV document, another was a policy slip, and then the email itself, because most time the emails contains a lot of valuable information. Earlier, Nigel made a point around explainability and transparency of the model. You will see AI here is transparently telling you, I am 94% confident that this is an SOV. As a reviewer, you can always click on these documents, look at the document, validate the result of AI. There was a question that Aditya asked earlier, what kind of human engagement can be brought in here? Every step of the way has human in the loop accessibility. So as a human reviewer, if you want to go in and change any of these fields, change of any of these classifications, you have the power to do that. The moment we have categorically said that, okay, the classifications are all correct, the next step is to move into the transactions, which is essentially your document review step. What we have done here is we have made it very robust for our underwriters and operation team members to look at the incoming submission and the extracted information by the artificial intelligence side by side, so that you can look at. On the left screen, you see there are 3 toggles with the 3 paper trail. This can contain any number of paper trail out there. To your right, you see a comparison of all the values that are extracted from this paper trail with the columns policy slip, email, SOV, etc. Now, one beautiful aspect you will notice here is the way artificial intelligence is performing here, and that's the beauty of the core models that are built in Docufy. They are extracting information out of tables, out of context, all different aspects of the paper trail without restriction on what type of value is coming in. All your different values or information needed is designed on your right screen in the format that someone would like to review. Again, would call out, there was a conversation around organization change management. What we do is we make sure this experience is spoken with the operations team and underwriters with, and if you require modifications to this experience, they can be easily brought in with the fungibility that Unqork and Docufy provide on Google Cloud. Now you will see here the named insured has been extracted. The moment an underwriter or an operation team member clicks on a certain value, on your left screen, the AI takes you to the exact location and the exact paper trail where that value is extracted from, so that one can validate where is the artificial intelligence picking up the value from. You see this green highlight? It's coming the moment you click on a certain value on your right screen. You will notice that the AI is extracting all the different values with its right context. For example, is it for one entity? Is it for multiple entity? Without being confused about how this should be laid in front of the underwriter. Here you will see what the AI is telling you, and this is a recommender that is acting on your screen, the black and the red. The AI is trying to tell here that for any one vessel of bulk concentrates for loss due to shortage or difference in weight, I see two different types of values, around USD 25,000 on the policy document and 0.5% of the total insured value that's coming in through the slip. What it's telling you is now is where I require a human to intervene. This is a part of the more complex job, right? I need someone to intervene and tell me which is the right value that I can take forward. In this particular transaction, both the values are coming to $25,000. So one can click on any one of the values between the two paper trails, accept that input. So that's an activity that human in the loop is providing. Clicked on a yes. This is when the AI gets the direction that this value will be picked up going forward. While I take through this, there was another question, I believe, again, from Aditya around, how does this AI become better over time? The AI is actively learning in certain time periods. So all the engagements that a human reviewer is doing with the AI will go back and make the performance of the AI better. It follows certain aspects like prioritizing inputs from certain users, etc. But the feedback loop is enabled, and this process gets better over time as and when more and more humans are engaging with the AI. Once all of this is done, one can confirm that, this is everything I need, or an underwriter or an ops team member can make a call that, hey, I want to write back to a sender. What the AI is doing here is picking up all the different disparities and formulating that email for you that you can connect to your email servers. And this email can be directly triggered back with discrepancies in the paper trail, or you can decide to make changes to these values and move it forward in the process. Once this is done, you can confirm that the submission is good to go. That is when we move to the next step of enrichment, which Nigel was focusing on earlier. Here we are showing you an example of DNB lookup, where, as soon as the full name is identified, a human can go in and select the right kind of entity and enrich the data with this third-party information, making your incoming data more holistic. Once that's done, the last step on this submission process is to validate the information. This is a screen where all your different values are layered in, the ones that were automatically picked up by the artificial intelligence, the ones that the humans edited onto the paper trail. Addition to that, if you want to make any further changes here, the same enablement can be made basis roles. Now what we are doing is, once the submission is analyzed, you have all the necessary values, we are moving to the next step of the underwriting workbench. This is where you will see all the different values that are required in different sections of your underwriting workbench, the information that came through the paper trail or have been populated by the human have been auto-populated on the screen. You can also, underwriters can add additional information in here. For example, if I'm an underwriter, I'll add my name, other values, etc. Then the next step is exposure management. This is where, again, whatever the AI found, a lot of this information was in, combined format on the paper trail that the AI has split and shown to the underwriter. Where is a certain value coming from? Any single item that the underwriter absolutely needed here and is not a part of the details can be written back. This is one interesting example when you come to limits and deductibles. If you remember the paper trail, we were analyzing the earthquake, flood, and windstorm were more like descriptive statements that were jointly showing values. Here, the AI has split them into three parts, saying earthquake is so much, flood is so much, windstorm is so much. Similarly, all different values are getting populated. You can go to your coverages and endorsements, add aspects in here. And let me call out, all of these screens are customizable basis your need. This is a great starting point, and you can evolve your ecosystem from here. Now comes ratings. Now this is where you can integrate Unqork with your rating engines. You can integrate it with, in certain cases, Excels are being used in certain parts of the world for rating. Excel macros are being used. All of that automation can be brought in here. Integrations can be brought in here, and the necessary information can be chosen from the details provided. This is the reinsurance module. Then we move to exclusions and subjectivities, document management, referral management, and quote management. Now, once all of these steps are followed by the underwriter, and you'll be able to appreciate it's an end-to-end seamless experience. No one had to worry about, hey, I'm using one tool here, another tool here, aspects like that. Unqork is just simply streamlining everything end-to-end for every user's consumption. This is the step where, quote management happens. You can look at the entire summary and you can hit the necessary options to move the submission forward. Now that's on how end-to-end underwriting works. Now we would like to show you how generative AI enables this entire end-to-end process. Now imagine, your operations team member has presented the factual information from the paper trail to the underwriters for their reference. Underwriters would still want to go back, cross-validate certain details, get into nuances of certain information, and these will be done on very complex paper trail. In this example, it's a 68-pager paper trail. You see here, all the values are extracted, but down here is an easy chat window. Again, the experience can be customized. An easy chat window where the underwriter can write their questions on the paper trail in simple English. They'll be able to show how, say the first question that has been written here is, what is the maximum limit of bodily injury? The AI is pulling up that information for the underwriter. This is more of a factual question. So the AI is telling you concretely maximum limit is so and so basis what I'm seeing in the paper. Here there are options where an underwriter can engage with the AI and say, I'm not comfortable with this response, or I would like to see an alternate response, give their feedback. Back to Aditya's question on how does the feedback loop work. The moment someone gives a feedback here, that goes and hits the brain of the artificial intelligence, and it understands that I am not giving a certain response correctly and improves itself over time. What you will also notice here is the explainability of the artificial intelligence. It has said to you that the information that I've pulled for you refers to page 1, 2, 3, and 4, 3, 4, and 5 of this paper trail. These are the sections I have looked at to give you a certain response. It will be able to describe to you what are the different snippets of data it has analyzed in your paper trail to come to this conclusion. The second example here is more to do with, we saw coverage and limits. Now we are going to look at, you can look at what are the residents, what is the definition of resident. Now, this is where we were talking about, you can easily use generative AI on FAQ documents, your operating functions, etc., and your incoming paper trail. Last but not the least here is a very context-related question, which is where, let me take you there. Someone typed in a complex scenario-based question for the AI, which is not really a factual information and go into fine prints of the policy document. This is where the AI is providing response to a situational question. What you will notice that this entire response is suggestive to your users so that they can choose to take this output of the AI or choose to go in and do their own analysis. This is how we will be able to make it excessively easy for the underwriters to analyze the paper trail with simple English natural language querying, expediting the whole process of being able to look at the necessary information in your document. I'll take a pause there. That's what we had for the demonstration today. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you, Arunima. We are about 2 minutes away from wrapping up. So why don't I just throw one last question here from the Q&A over to you, Farooq and Nigel. That is about, I think it's coming from Titora, if I mispronounce your name. Looking at the future, what do you think the industry will be different in next 2 to 3 years? What makes you more excited? 30 seconds each. Nigel, first.
I look at what we were doing a couple of years back with folks like Britt and Key around algorithmic underwriting. And I'm keen to understand and excited for what the future brings if you take our new technology and new capability that wasn't around then and you apply it to that sort of model, what does it do for us today, in the future? So it's my same old think big, start small, act quickly. I think there's a huge opportunity right now ahead of us. We just got to work out what guardrails we want to put in place and how we can keep pushing towards the edge of those.
Thank you. Farooq, 30 seconds to you.
And my general view is that if you think about the stages of evolution, right? So we talked about the stage where it was all about people and process. Now we're kind of getting to a stage where the promise of bionic underwriting in terms of pulling together and orchestrating all the pieces of technology is real. I do think that in the next 2 years, we'll see the play out of generative AI in a very significant way, right? Like given the cognitive automation elements of generative AI in terms of assessment of risks and assessments of account level summarizations and the ability to have a more human interaction between the underwriters and all the data at their disposal. I think the streamlining of the bionic underwriter along with the Gen AI capabilities is going to be a key game changer in the next 2 to 3 years. That to me is a very clear kind of we're right there at the beginning of the journey.
Wonderful. Thank you, Farooq, Nigel, and Arunima for taking the questions throughout the session. We were keeping it for the end, but we ended up taking questions as we went along. So thank you so much for being flexible there. With that, let's make a call to action here. We can quickly transform, as you saw from Arunima's demo, your underwriting journeys with a breakneck speed and to get to deliver the business value. So reach out to us, to myself, Vikas here, or to Arunima, Quantiphi team, to learn how you can achieve your long sought after enhancements while working and maintaining your legacy stack. To wrap things up, we would love to attendees to explore the technologies and the platforms and synergies we discussed here today. Please reach out to us via email or through these links that we have posted. We are going to be at ITC, InsurTech Connect in Vegas, starting next week. And we have a live demo there also. If you want to join us in person, if you happen to be attending, we would love to host you there. With that, let me first thank you, Nigel, Farooq, and Arunima for this very insightful and valuable discussion here today. And thank you to all lovely audience for your time and participation. We hope you found this webinar very informative and valuable. And with this, I'm going to wrap it up. Have a wonderful day. And we are looking forward to working with you. Thank you.